every one of us has the power to just, go online, research how it's done, write a few lines of code, put them onto the Ethereum blockchain. It costs a little bit of a gas fee, but then those lines of code are there and they work, and they will never ever stop working unless the entire ecosystem of Ethereum collapses. I just think, wow, this is the kind of fire I want to play with.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Quantum Minds podcast. My name is Kapil Dhiman, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Quranium, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host Olivia Karlsson to interview another disruptor today, Chris.
First priority is buying and holding. You have to buy Bitcoin because there's a limited supply of them. There's more millionaires on the planet than there's Bitcoins. So it's just it was a very simple, very stupid equation for me in my head. I was like, okay, I gotta buy as much as I can.
A biochemistry dropout, tech serial entrepreneur who has built amazing companies in this space.
What would you say are some of the factors that are slowing down the adoption of blockchain, and how can it be mitigated?
There's been so many blockchains, so many cryptocurrencies, and then of course the threat to the current security encryption of the blockchains and the cryptocurrencies that we have. That creates room for a better Bitcoin.
The Google Drive leaks and the Apple photo leaks that happen, seemingly every couple of months or every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's you go online and you see news of, another celebrity's nude photos have been leaked from Apple, and it's okay, this is not some third party, small, tiny company who doesn't know what they're doing. That's Apple servers that have been breached here.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Quantum Minds podcast. My name is Kapil Dhiman, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Quranium, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host Olivia Karlsson to interview another disruptor today, Chris, a biochemistry dropout, Bitcoin is to be blamed, turned a tech serial entrepreneur who has built amazing companies in this space based out of the beautiful country of Switzerland. Thank you for joining us, Chris.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
It's a pleasure. Looking forward to having a deep conversation with you.
Absolutely.
So I think to start with, it'll be best if I hand over the mic to you and you introduce yourself, how your journey has been so far. I'm sure the stuff that you have built or to discussed off camera, audience would love to know about that.
All right. So yeah, as you already mentioned, Bitcoin is to blame for me throwing out or dropping my biochemistry career that I started. Mm-hmm. So I was a student back then. That was still in 2016, and then as it happens, as life plays, I met a guy, a really shady looking dude with his hood over his head at the bus station, very late at night. It was 10 p.m. or later. I can't exactly remember, of course, but I chatted him up because I saw he was playing a game on his phone. I chatted him up, and we became friends, and he told me about Bitcoin. Turns out he was a super technical nerd in that space. He knew all about it. He was into mining and everything back then, and he told me all about it. So it instantly clicked with me. I just realized, okay, there's a supply and demand. Bitcoin has a limited supply, and the demand for a decentralized currency that is inflation proof is probably only going to grow over time. There's no reason this shouldn't really grow, right? So I just invested all of my time into that immediately. And as it happens, I just, I still was a student at the time. I haven't graduated. And at some point I received an email where it says, okay, look, this is the exam schedule. Next week on Monday is going to be math. And then on Wednesday is going to be chemistry or something. I can't quite remember. And I remember reading it oh, wait, I probably should have gone to university. I probably visited some classes this semester. Otherwise, I have no chance. So I just made the decision to drop out, because in that time instead, I've just delved into Bitcoin, and I have been trading it. And during 2016, it only really went up. So I saw the potential. I was quite happy with the financial aspect as well, and it brought me, in a weird way, even though it had so much volatility, it brought me some security. So the next step was bringing that news to my mom. But she was quite understanding as well, because she She was also familiar with Bitcoin. Over time, we both got very familiar with the topic. And at some point, she was like, "Yeah, this space is growing so much." She's a businesswoman as well, as you know, and she was like, "Yeah, this space is gonna grow. Let's try to make something work in here. Biochemistry. I mean, it's still gonna be there after Bitcoin is gone, if that ever happens." So yeah, that was the best, dumbest decision I've ever made, dropping out and pursuing a career in unknown or uncharted territories for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And do you give credit to the shady dude on the bus stop?
100%. I wish I could remember his name because we moved and I don't have his number anymore. But if I could find him, I would. I owe him a big bottle of wine. Yeah, he changed my life pretty much.
Wow.
But of course, I mean, then there's the argument, like I said, my mom got into Bitcoin as well, roughly around the same time. She saw it on the internet and she had the same opinions. It clicked with her instantly as well. And so if it wasn't for him, it was probably my mom who would have told me about it. But still, I mean, the credit where credit is due. Shady dude, if you can see this, thank you. Call me if you still have my number.
So not financial advice. Not all shady dudes are bad. Don't avoid them all.
Hey kids, listen to the shady dude at the bus station at 10 p.m. That's it will change your life somehow. But yeah, no,
good.
of course, it's lots of luck involved too.
Yeah.
Like you can say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't dismiss that, but yeah, that's it's funny how life plays sometimes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Definitely. How did like the progression after that? Like, I'm just curious how, I'm sure that like there have been so many different verticals in your life ever since.
Yeah.
You know, you having an inspirational mom to begin with, had the pleasure of meeting her.
Absolutely.
But then also on top of that, you know, your interest for what's happening in the space. How did that journey evolve, and what did you dive deeper into from there?
Right. So in the beginning, I thought, okay, the first priority is buying and holding. You have to buy Bitcoin because there's a limited supply of them. There's more millionaires on the planet than there's Bitcoins. So it's just it was a very simple, very stupid equation for me in my head. I was like, okay, I got to buy as much as I can. So I was a tutor at the time as well. So I was tutoring high school students to get through their final exams to pass high school. And all the money I made there, we had Bitcoin ATMs back then, if you remember, right? These little machines where you just pump, you put in these just cash bills, and it would print out a paper wallet for you, and then send the appropriate amount of Bitcoin minus the transaction fee, which is how they made money, onto that. So pretty much every day, all the money I made minus what the bare minimum I needed for rent and food, everything I made would just went straight into one of those machines. Yeah, so that was step one. And then number two was like, okay, I got introduced the semi-hard way to volatility in the market and I mean, the Bitcoin price didn't just go up in a straight line, as I wish it did, as any trader or as any investor wished it did. But it didn't for some reason. It surprised me quite much that other people buying Bitcoin didn't have the exact same vision as me. Funny, huh? Why don't we all have the same opinions, huh? So it goes up and down in patterns. So, and I thought, okay, if I could manage to sell when it's high and then buy more when it's lower, then I would have more Bitcoin, right? That's basic trading. So basically my student mind realized, trading is probably a very profitable thing. And luck so happens that I have a friend who studied banking and finance at the time. And he told me about a trading strategy, a very simple one. And it's called portfolio rebalancing. And that is basically, if you have 5 different assets, as an example, and you put 20% of your investment into each one of them, let's say you have $10,000 to invest, and there's like 5 different ones. Let's say Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin, Ripple, and Stellar Lumens. Let's make those 5. And you put 20% of your investment in each of those, so 2,000 in each of those. And then you just wait for the price to fluctuate. You just wait a period of time, let's say 1 hour. that's a year in crypto space, you know. I mean, a year in real markets is basically an hour in crypto space. So let's say Ethereum gained a little bit in value and Ripple went down a little bit in value. So let's assume, for the same simplicity of the example, you still have $10,000 in that portfolio, but it's just that 2,500 is now in Ethereum and 1,500 is in Ripple. So what you do is you rebalance. You sell a little bit of Ethereum because it's currently outperforming. It's currently high. So you sell $500 of it and put it in Ripple so that they're both 2,000 again. So everything is rebalanced to 20% equal again. And then you wait again, because the next week or the next hour, it might be that the pump in Ethereum is over. It cools off a little bit. It goes down again. And the Ripple dump or whatever scared them, whatever news, whatever tweet happened that caused this is recovering again. Just these fluctuations, they just happen all the time. There's always these waves. Sorry, viewers, for touching the mic twice by now. It's a little close to my face and I'm gesticulating here. But yeah, so over time, on average, what happens is that, you know, you always sell a little bit of your assets that are outperforming and you invest in those that are currently underperforming. And then they switch places, right? So you always sell when an item is high and you always buy when an item is low. And you just do that over time, bit by bit, just tiny amounts. And then over time, statistically speaking, you will outperform buy and hold most likely. You know, there's never a guarantee for this, but in financial markets, you know, people who study this stuff, like my friend at the time, you know, it is considered a low risk, low reward strategy. So you have a little bit of an edge over buy and hold. Yeah, so we've done that for a while, and then I realized we should probably we should automate this because I'm not awake 24/7. So I wrote a little Python script that does it. And that's how it took off, right? So my friend and I, we realized, okay, there's probably a product in this, because all of our friends and family came to us and were like, hey, can you let that run for me as well? Because everybody got into crypto at the time. And then we just had so many people that we were supposed to manage this for. And I thought, okay, we should automate this. So everybody, we hooked it up to Telegram. So there's a little command line interface so everybody can, you know, do it themselves. So I didn't have to, you know, log into my servers and change the settings all the time. And yeah, it just took off. We then founded a company together that was Blockspirit. And we just traveled around in Switzerland to all these little these crypto events, like there's Wine and Vision in Zug, for example. It's a good one. Or Crypto Mountain Rocks, which is an event by Reto, a friend of Barbara's, and we just got to you know, introduce our product and our company to, you know, we didn't even market it as a product to sell, but rather we were just open-ended. Like, okay, look, this is what we're building, and if anybody's interested for any kind of collaboration, let's see where we end up. And that's how we met the CEOs of Phoenix Systems and Core Technologies at the time. That was Thomas Toroni for Phoenix Systems and Carla Bünger for Core Technologies. And they were partners as well. And they invited us over to talk. And they then hired us on the spot as project manager. And George was in finance there. So as a bookkeeper, basically. And that's how we got started. And we still had our company on the side. So then we worked there, and eventually Phoenix Systems decided, okay, we should probably delve more into the crypto space. And what they needed was a company that could hold cryptocurrencies on their balance sheets. And I remember Thomas talking to me at was one of our calls at 1 a.m. and we were pondering, okay, how should we shape this? How should we do this in the future? We need a spin-off company that can hold cryptocurrencies on their balance sheets, because we expect clients to pay in crypto, and then that's going to be the department inside of the company structure that deals with crypto related stuff. And then we realized, hey, look, Chris, don't you have a company somewhere that could do this for us? I'm like, Exactly, we do. And so that was Blockspirit. Blockspirit filled that role, and then they immediately invested a small amount into us to take us into the holding group, and that's how we became partners. And then I was sadly fired as project manager there, but luckily I was hired instantly the same day as CEO for Blockspirit. So it was that's my roles just changed.
Nice.
Yeah, and then we just grew and expanded inside of that holding group, and and then fast forward a little bit, we realized it would probably be simpler instead of having 3 companies that always rely on each other. It was complicated because if we wanted to make a full-fledged crypto related project, all 3 companies had to be involved in some way anyway. So we always had to have some contractual friction between us to make it work. So we decided it would probably be easier if we just fuse these 3 companies into one big one. And then instead of having 3 different companies that have contracts with each other and 3 different balance sheets and 3 different executive committees and whatnot, we just have one company and just 3 departments that just work more or less frictionless with each other. So there was a merger. And that's how I basically exited my operative role in the company. And that's where we are today.
Fantastic. First of all, you've had such a fascinating journey. Okay,
It was fun,
but at the same time, I really want viewers to know your other side as well, which we spoke about in detail off camera yesterday when we were having lunch.
Yeah.
You have highlighted your journey based on, of course, the trading aspect of cryptocurrency, but you are a much deep thinker. You're an analyzer as well. You go deep into the things of every aspect that you touch upon, whether it is business or something else. You're a very analytical person as well. So what was that analysis on the technology side that you did? And, here I think I would love for you to talk about your, super scalable blockchain that you worked on. What was the technology side of the cryptocurrency that you analyzed?
Okay, I mean, generally everything about blockchain fascinated me, and it's where did it start? It was probably one thing when you describe a blockchain to somebody who has never heard of it, how do you explain to them what a private key is? And when they say, okay, if I buy a Bitcoin, where is it stored? Where is it? Is it on some server or something? When that clicked, when the answer to that clicked for me, that was the number one technological advancement that drew me into it.
What was it?
It was, it's a decentralized server, so to say, because all the nodes, all the miners that have to find a consensus on, do we agree on the next block? Are all these transactions that are in this, are they all valid? Do we all agree that this is our, shared recorded history, so to say? Then we can move forward, and only then. Right. And then the next one happens and the next block and so on and so forth. So that was the invention or the aspect of blockchain that I thought, okay, man, this has so many use cases beyond just monetary transactions. Like you can store any kind of data like this. If you wanted censorship proof or tamper proof, like any secret could be, stored like this in an encrypted way. Any document, any, actual recorded, historical piece, because that's essentially what it is, right? It is recorded history, things that have happened. Now, inside of Bitcoin, it is limited to, the closed ecosystem of Bitcoins that travel between Bitcoin wallets. And that's it. But that's such a powerful proof of concept of what you can do with it. And then the next logical step is, of course, Ethereum with the smart contracts, which is basically, okay, let's store lines of code that do things onto the blockchain, and you can never get rid of them ever again. So I just think that's funny, because it's not just funny, but there's so much power behind this, but also so much potentially destructive power as well. Because imagine what am I saying? Imagine, but every one of us has the power to just go online, research how it's done, write a few lines of code, put them onto the Ethereum blockchain, it costs a little bit of a gas fee. But then those lines of code are there and they work, and they will never, ever stop working unless the entire ecosystem of Ethereum collapses. I just think, wow, this is the kind of fire I want to play with, right? That's exactly how I would characterize it. And then, of course, there's no end to it. It's like how many use cases are there for smart contracts, right? Think of something and you can probably make it work. Right now, you don't want to fall into this trap of, if the only tool you have is a blockchain, then every problem suddenly looks like it can be solved with smart contracts, right? The hammer and nail fallacy. Of course, you don't want to fall into that, but it just brings so much more capability and so many more options to the existing tech table.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I think looking at the way that technology is emerging and the way that, data storage is becoming kind of a big question mark, especially in alignment with the vast amount of data that will need to, go between IoT devices and things like that, alongside just data in general, right? There's going to be a need for innovation there. Where do you see, because I love your way of describing blockchain as as an infrastructure and how it works, right? How do you see, what are the strongest use cases that you see? And how do you see blockchain fitting into this world that is sort of accelerating on a technological level?
Right. Okay. Strongest use cases for blockchain. I've never thought about that. Oh, wow. Okay. Now this is subject to change. If I say something in this video, I might change my opinion tomorrow, right? Or maybe even right after this video, I will probably think of something else. But the biggest one is still financial transactions, because number one, they are global. I mean, okay, let's think about it this way: if you want to send $1 million worth of any kind of currency, let's say Swiss francs or US dollars, to somebody on the other side of the planet under a different jurisdiction in a different banking system. So let's say some guy in China or some guy in India or some guy in wherever, right? How much friction would there be involved? How many people would have to sign off on that, right? Because you can't really just log into your PayPal and be like, okay, $1 million here, bro, no problem. I mean, does that work? Has anybody tried that yet? Have you tried that? Because there's lots of service involved. If try Western Union for this, right? There's a hefty fee involved. Lots of people you have to be registered with everybody. There's lots of paperwork that have to be checked. And, it's just, and it takes a while. It's not like they're like this, even though it's just numbers on a screen. It's just that, these numbers have to be approved by many eyes looking at them. And, somebody might ask you questions, right? Depending on where that money comes from and, what your reputation is with the banks involved. They might ask you questions and delay the process. And you're just like, okay, look, I'm just a rich guy. The other guy is just a rich guy. We're just buddies. He gave me his car. I'm sending in $1 million. Please don't ask me any more stupid questions, right? Just stay out of our business. Assuming it's an innocent business like that, right? There's just so much friction involved and so much work, so many work hours, man hours being put into this one transactions. Where it's with Bitcoin, it's like, okay, calculate how many Bitcoins it is, send it over. Depending on the traffic, it might take a while. Bitcoin is not the fastest blockchain there is, right? But it's the biggest and the one with the most trust as of now. And it's gonna be there in half an hour or something. Right, you can be chatting with the guy, and it'll appear on his wallet, and it'll cost you a few cents, a few dollars worth of transaction fees. No bank and no financial service can compete with this. The performance and the convenience here is just absolutely unparalleled and unrivaled. Right, so now this has consequences as well, because governments cannot really, it's just wallet codes. There's no names and no addresses attached to either of them, right? So how do they get their share of taxes from this transaction, if it applies? And, what if, how do you prevent somebody, sending money to a terrorist organization that he's not allowed to interact with, right? Of course, all of these, the libertarians will say, well, what if I want to send my money to a terrorist? I should have every right to do so, right? And other people might disagree that that there should be limitations on this, right? But none of that really bothered me in the beginning, because what I saw is, okay, this is a technological, technological ground on which you can build up whatever you want. And now, of course, we will see both of these aspects, like the libertarian aspect and the governmental control aspect, both have now their manifestations of this. And the libertarians, they tend towards things like privacy coins, like Monero. Zcash, I believe, is one. Personal favorite is Pirate Coin, which is ARRR. Literally, that's their short name, the symbol. And these transactions are even more encrypted and even more privatized, whereas the governments tend towards things like CBDCs. Smart contract based cryptocurrencies with names and documents of names and addresses and identities of people attached to transactions or attached to wallets, so to say, and possibly built-in inflation. They have control over the money supply. Again, I'm not making comments on either one of these two things. I'm just saying, like, this is what I'm seeing as technological development. So again, with blockchain, anything is possible. Like, the problems and the behaviors that people have, they will persist. People who seek privacy, they will continue to use the privacy coins, and governments who seek control will continue to try and build that into the technology, the technology available to them. So that's where we are. So going back to your question, what's the biggest use case? Financial transactions, definitely. How much did I spend on just answering this? It must be like 15 minutes just.
But I think it's great to like hear kind of like the full story behind the answer, because it provides a lot of context. And there's so many different verticals of how blockchain technology can be applied, specifically in the financial area of things, right? So I think it deserves a little bit of attention. So it's a great answer, I must say.
So because when you ask me something like that, I wanna make sure it's a good answer. So you just hear my loud thoughts on how I arrived there. So financial transactions would probably be the biggest one. Second one is, okay, let's make this short. Let's spend 30 seconds on the next one. It's probably, let's find any use case where it's important to store a data that shouldn't be falsified. So basically,
a data storage in short.
But sensitive data. Not just any kind of data. I mean, okay, it's going to be more than 30 seconds. Sorry.
Good about that.
Got time.
So, so you have heard about the Google Drive leaks and the Apple photo leaks that happen, seemingly every couple of months or every couple of weeks. Like, sometimes it's like you go online and you see news of, another celebrity's nude photos have been leaked from Apple, and it's like, okay, this is not some third-party, small, tiny company who doesn't know what they're doing. That's Apple servers that have been breached here. And then the same thing, it's not unique to Apple. The same happens on Microsoft OneDrive. The same happens on Google Drive. It's not like any of these are safe, so to say, from hacking. Now, the question is, and I'm not 100% an expert in this, could this be a problem that is solvable with blockchain technology? Could you put your photos, the pixel data or just the data of the photos in an encrypted way so that nobody can actually see them without a private key, put them on a blockchain somewhere so that they're safe there. Basically, nobody can remove them, nobody can delete them, and nobody can see them unless they have a private key. And it's like, how do you hack that? Because for me, the proof that this would be a possible solution is the fact that this hasn't happened, or hacks like this hasn't happened yet with Bitcoin transactions or Ethereum transactions. right? Or any of the smart contracts or the smart contract structures that we typically use nowadays, right? They all have their own level of security that hasn't been breached yet. So yeah, data storage. To put it very bluntly, now is data storage, does that count as a use case already, or is that still too broad? Because you could have asked me like, okay, what's the biggest use case for data storage?
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely, that's a good point. But I do think that it can be applied in multiple different industries.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it comes down to the storage element, and there's lots of different types of storage as well.
Yeah.
So I think it's like, I think you've answered it for sure.
If we think about it, like financial transactions are also just data storage. No, it's a ledger. You store what happened.
Well, you are storing the confirmation that something happened. Like that's how I would categorize the financial transaction, the data storage element. But the data storage in independence is like literally like an alternate to like Google Drive for that matter. You're storing something to just access it multiple times. Yeah. And I do agree with you. That's like that's a very, very important use case, because like we at Quranium also are paying a lot of importance in creating decentralized quantum secure data storage as a solution for enterprises to start with, and then we'll take it to B2C as well, because we strongly believe that I think that's fundamental. Having the comfort, having the peace of mind that whatever you're storing, wherever you're storing, is never going to be cracked, is never going to be hacked,
100%.
And it's cheap, it's fast, there's no single point of failure.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that becomes a very important use case. But when you were explaining specifically the financial, the payments use case, which I 1000% agree with you is the most important one. That's where Bitcoin was born, right? To kind of create an alternative. Do you think now the way the industry is evolving, there's been like so many blockchains, so many cryptocurrencies, and then of course the threat to the current security encryption of the blockchains and the cryptocurrencies that we have, that creates room for a better Bitcoin, for a next Bitcoin?
Possibly. Because, okay, at this point, we never know what's going to happen, of course, right? So the threat to existing cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin specifically that you're alluring to is, of course, quantum computers and Shor's algorithm, which could be a potential, security problem, where it could enable you that, given enough developments in the quantum computer industry, that eventually we could, crack transactions and maybe enable people, to find a private key based on a public key. So if I give you my public key, you can just, put that through a quantum computer specific script that would, give you a possible or give you the one private key that would give you access to my wallet's contents, something like that, right? There's so much speculation in this space, and of course you know more about this than possibly anyone, right? Since that's what your main focus is in Quranium. But what I've seen in history generally, like if you look at how things develop, and I'm not talking about like old history, but just very recent history. People don't move and people don't panic until the problem is already manifesting and it's too late, right? That's how a bank run happens. Let's just think about how a bank run happens and why it happens and how people react to it. Everybody knows that the banks do not have your money, or they don't have all your money. Let's put it that way. They have like 10% of it. So everybody already knows right now that if everybody went to the bank at the same time to demand, hey, look, I want to withdraw all my money from the bank, only 10% of them would get it, or everybody would on average get 10% of it, if at all, right? So this is what people already know. So people are aware of the problem. Let's say that we are at the level where people are aware of the problem. But there is no bank run because everybody is still comfortable with the idea that, oh, well, nothing has happened yet. Nobody's panicking. So why should I? Until people panic and everybody starts the bank run, something provokes those initial 10% of people, like the critical mass that get everybody else on the panic train. Like the knowledge about the problem hasn't changed at all, right? And the situation has not changed at all. It's just that now the thing that everybody knew about could happen is happening. And then everybody panics and everybody wants their money and everybody's crying because they were too late in withdrawing everything. Right? That is how things or how problems are reacted to by the general population. That's just my cynical opinion on it. So now back to Bitcoin and quantum computers, it's probably going to be the same thing, right? The news that or the idea that quantum computers could pose a huge risk to existing blockchain technologies is already out there. People are talking about it. People are speculating about it. Not everybody is well researched about it, me included. So I'm on the speculation team side. But one thing is for sure, nobody, most people, or let's say not enough people, will upgrade their wallets if there's technology available, or will take the necessary precautions to save their cryptos until there's going to be a quantum related breach of some sort. And then there's going to be news about that. And then there's going to be a crypto run, so to say, where everybody's pulling out their Bitcoins from their wallets into something safer. With the difference that, Bitcoin actually has all your Bitcoins and they're not, fractionally reserved somewhere else. That's my take on it. So again, we'll have to see.
And what do you think is going to be the next big thing in the crypto or the blockchain industry? Like, what's going to set the trend for the next 5 years?
That's a difficult one because there have been so many next big things that I didn't predict. So I have no chance of finding the next one. Did any one of us predict crypto kitties or crypto punks or the Bored Apes or the NFT arts, things that have happened? I predicted none of those. I just stuck with, okay, look, there's 21 million Bitcoins and they're not making any more of those. Get them while you can. That's all I cared about for the most part. And so that's the only thing that I predicted, that as long as this holds true, as long as the security of Bitcoin holds true, the value should go up. No financial advice over time.
So if I repurpose my question, what's going to be the next focus for you as an entrepreneur? What do you want to build next? What is keeping you busy these days? What's your focus area like?
I'm an advisor now in the crypto space. So and I made that decision because in these after the merge and everything, when I just go to events, crypto related events, and just network with people, and we just talk about the subject. Lots of people who come from other sectors, like other parts of the tech sector, financial sectors, medical sectors, who want to delve into blockchain, and they just ask me about the basics of blockchain, and I just explain it to them. They all tell me like, "Oh man, you should do this for a living. Like you should tell people about blockchain for a living." So that's one what I want to do. So this isn't really the next big thing. It's more like nailing the basics. Getting companies on board to nail the basics. Get into the crypto space in a way that makes sense and that is realistic. So, but I guess your question would be, okay, what companies do I want to work with, and what do I wish they would work with? In my opinion, would be the next big thing. In blockchain, let's see. Preventive quantum resistance would be a big one. Like that's fresh in my brain because I've been researching your company, of course, right? So that's one thing, and the other thing, or the next thing. It's difficult. There's so much you can do with art, but I'm not really an artist myself.
Do you see the convergence of AI and crypto playing a big role, or is becoming a mainstream?
AI and crypto.
Like I think one very important use case that is coming up, and we are working closely on that, is decentralized compute sharing, tokenized compute, like sharing the GPU's compute, right. This thing. So that's like a very good and important use case that is coming up. So something like that, where AI, the bigger industry, converge for the blockchain industry.
Okay. Let's delve into science fiction a little bit.
Okay, perfect. That sounds.
Imagine this. Governments and CEOs and any leading structures, decision makers should eventually, or will possibly eventually be replaced by AIs. Now, in terms for private companies, these should probably be in private hands and in private control, so that the people owning the country, can make the ultimate decisions, while just using that AI as an efficiency tool to streamline their decision making. Now, for governments, this should not be the case. There should governmental, overlord AIs, let's call it that, they should be in public hands, right? So how do you regulate, or how do you make it possible that an entire population can cast their vote and can make their voice count in a governmental system, which should work for them, without having a small minority of people controlling the AI, taking over, all the decisions by themselves, right? Because if we use, my thinking is, if you use any existing AI model like ChatGPT or something, or Gemini or whatever there is, and you just modify it in such a way that it could function for as a decision maker for political decisions, then it's like the people who control this algorithm, because as we know, all these existing ones, ChatGPT and Gemini, they are massively manipulated, right? Like if you can, manipulate, I say that, but it's censored in terms of, political opinions, right? You can have it generate all kinds of images, but not very obscene and offensive ones to certain groups, right? And there's a bias there as well. And but this is not because this is what the general data set reflects. This is there because a small group of people, namely the owners of these private AIs, that made this modification to it. So how do we enable an entire population to take part in an AI system like this without without it having any kind of bias in there? So and that's where blockchain technology could come in. So you have like if you go to the Solidity documents and you look for the first example there, for my first smart contract, the very first thing in there is, and I think that's very symbolic, is how to create a voting system with tokens on a blockchain. That could possibly be the first, or a very basic version of what should be in a governmental overlord AI type thing. And of course, the second part would be like the computing power of this should also be decentralized somewhere, so that nobody can hijack the servers and whatnot. And then you could be permanently and forever stuck with a AI that you cannot get rid of ever again. And it's decentralized and everybody gets a say. And if it works, it's great. And if it doesn't work, we will be forever stuck with it. That's those are my thoughts on it, on AI and blockchain.
Very interesting. So, like from an adoption standpoint, because you can look at the adoption within the next year. We could also look at it from a science fiction standpoint of like what's going to happen in the next 100 years. What would you say are some of the factors that are slowing down the adoption of blockchain, and how can it be like mitigated?
It's political decisions mostly.
Yeah.
So it's just natural in the end, because let's look at, okay, what does Bitcoin offer? Like I said before, it's like you can send money anonymously, more or less anonymously, as long as nobody knows that it's your name attached to your private key and public key. You can send practically endless amounts of money to any wallet on the planet that you want, be it, an enemy of the state you live in or not. And, you don't have to tell anybody about the transaction, so taxes can be avoided with this. So why should any government that wants these types of controls, why should any government politically push in favor of an adoption towards this? It's like, without getting into, okay, well, they're just trying to process. Let's just stay rational here and just objectively find reasons as to why the government you live in right now should push for cryptocurrency adoption. Like we have seen examples you don't even need a full hand to count the examples where this has happened. One of them is, I believe, Nayib Bukele, El Salvador, I believe. He started he pushed massively for Bitcoin adoption.
Yeah, the bank won Bitcoin every day.
Yeah, exactly. And he spent so much money. I mean, back then it was like $30,000 for a Bitcoin when he started. And then it went lower to 20,000, I believe. And everybody thought, okay, well, this third world just made a terrible investment and they lost half of their investment there or a big chunk of it. And now it's more than double of their initial price that they paid. So it was a massively well-spent investment on their part. And this acts as a strategic Bitcoin reserve. It replaces the gold reserve that they were previously were supposed to have.
Yeah, maybe I should have reframed my question, because I think I said what's slowing down the adoption, but that's an assumption. Essentially, it doesn't even have to mean that it's slowing down. Adoption is obviously increasing.
But I think that's right.
But blockers.
That's definitely blocking it. Absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, and now we recently had Trump, who has been to the to a Bitcoin conference in the USA, and he said the same thing. He will. If he gets elected in November, he will start a Bitcoin reserve, financial Bitcoin. Can I talk now? A Bitcoin reserve for the United States, which is also going to massively drive up the demand. They're going to buy up whatever Bitcoins they can get. They have more money than any of us combined. So it's going to drive up the price. Again, no financial advice, but it's just my assumption here. I feel like we have to say that because I've been conditioned. Anybody on YouTube who talks about Bitcoin does this all the time. So
definitely.
Yeah. I don't want to get sued here by anyone. But yeah, so it's like we have these two examples pushing in favor of Bitcoin, and then, but nobody else. Do they have good reasons to do so? Does Bitcoin give them any more control, or is it just out of pure goodwill that they want, a currency for the people that they can use? Or is it just an investment for their country to, because they think, the price is going to increase as well. So it will just increase the financial value of their reserve. We can speculate about the reasons, but yeah, it's why should governments push for it? Like most of them don't, because in the EU, you will have, you have kind of the opposite. There's going to be a regulation. I forgot what it's called, but it's basically they want to make it illegal for you to have wallets that are not hosted. And hosted wallets are those, on an exchange, that has access, or that where you have validated yourself with your passport. So they have your name and address, and then the government, they will be legally obliged to have a backdoor for governments if they come knocking on their door to say, okay, do you have a user named Chris? And how many Bitcoins does he have that he didn't write in his tax form last year, right? And that's how they can control who has how much, right? So, but again, so that's definitely like this governmental aversion to decentralized finance, to summarize it, is probably one of the main factors that slows down adoption. And another thing is, of course, volatility, because merchants who accept Bitcoin have to deal with, okay, somebody pays me $100 in Bitcoin tomorrow, that's going to be $120 or $50, right? Am I really? Yeah, so they. What they usually do nowadays is, if you pay somewhere with Bitcoin, if you find a store that accepts it, they have a system that automatically exchanges that for an equal value in Swiss francs or euros or dollars or whatever. So they have the fiat currency instead on the back end, but you, of course, in the front can use Bitcoin. So yeah, in terms of adoption, yeah, we can answer this question in the different ways. Like, let's say you open a business, another one, and you accept Bitcoin, or you're asked to make the decision: should we accept Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as payments? Why or why not would you accept cryptos? And the answers to that, like the thoughts you're going to have about this, is probably the answer as to why we don't see so much adoption of the crypto space in real life.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. But I think in this interview, a couple of times you looked at the camera and said, "Not financial advice," but
I was dead serious.
But my last question, and this has been like a crazy good interview. I loved having a perspective.
I'm glad you like it, because I feel like I'm rambling, but I'm glad people love to hear it.
That's precisely why I want to direct my last question as an advice that I want you to give to the youth that is entering this space now. You're an advisor now.
I say nothing without my lawyer. Just kidding. What kind of advice can I have?
No, completely up to you. Like, as a conclusion, what would be the advice that you would give the young generation who's entering this space, trying to build something meaningful, trying to build something for the long term? As an advisor, what would be your formal advice to them?
So any business out there that is, I don't want to be dramatic, because it's not like you're not going to survive as a business if you don't delve into this. But what I would recommend is that view blockchain not as, what social media reports on it, because you will get a skewed perspective. So when you research, the technology behind NFTs, you will see pictures of monkeys, and you will see crypto kitties and lots and lots of scams and accusations of scams. And then you will think, you might get the impression that, okay, well, crypto looks like a scam, so I will not touch it with a 10-foot pole. But in reality, an NFT is merely it's a digital object on a blockchain that cannot be replicated, and that is non-fungible. NFT, non-fungible token, and it can be used for anything. It could be a storage for digital keys that you want somewhere, or it could be you can have digital assets that you give to your clients, and you can sell the access to this in a way like this. There's many use cases for this that are entirely practical, that have nothing to do with pictures of anything or any kinds of scams. So what I urge you to do is view blockchain and the entire blockchain space as just another tool that you can use in the technology that you have available. It is comparable to a cloud. It is comparable to internet itself, right? It should be another tool in your repertoire. So start with researching what exactly is a wallet. What exactly is a blockchain? What is a block in a blockchain? How do these transactions get validated? What is the difference between a centralized and a decentralized blockchain? So on and so forth. And as you learn about the technology, like if you're a business, you're already well versed in your specific niche of the market. You understand your use case, you understand your clients, hopefully, ideally. So you will, as you research into this tool and all its different capabilities, what it can and can't do, you will then figure out how to apply it, and if to apply it in your space by yourself and automatically. And if not, then you will just have learned another piece of tech that you may or may not use, but that is still highly interesting, that is still a market of itself that is massively growing, and I predict it's going to grow in the future. It's going to continue growing, and you will have researched something that you will not regret either way. And then, as a side effect, it will also give you the capability, and this is something I predict for you. If you work in tech, every 4 years, in schedule with the Bitcoin halving cycle, you will have clients that will ask you about, can we do something with blockchain? Every 4 years this happens. This is going to happen to you. So, and for that question, when that arrives, you will be prepared. So that's my advice to anybody working in tech, who could research something. It's definitely
fantastic.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Chris. Thank you so much for coming on Quantum Minds. It was such a pleasure to have you.
Thanks again for the time. Thanks for having me. It has been a pleasure being interviewed by you. First time in a podcast like this. A little nervous. I hope I didn't ramble too much, but it has been a wonderful experience.
Incredible substance, I must say. Honestly, very good conversation. Thank you so much for coming.
Great questions too. Yeah.
How can people find you? How can people connect with you?
I am on Telegram as Chris_Celestial. And otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn as well, Christian Spahr. And we can possibly just put the link in the description as well.
Perfect. We'll do that.
That's it.
Great. Thank you for tuning into Quantum Minds. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care.